Welcome to the Story Fulfilled podcast, where we deep dive into how each character and story in the Bible come together to fulfill the story of God.
I'm Jay.
I'm Fletcher.
And I'm Abby.
And today's story is about King Ashish.
That was Jay. It wasn't me.
That was absolutely. I mean, you can rewind and listen again and see if my voice is able to do that all at once.
Can you try?
Ashish. You're supposed to come in and do it again, Fletcher. Come on.
Sorry. It wasn't me.
Today's story is about King Ashish. Yeah, there we go. Wow. And people still listen to us.
Well, we'll see
We
after
think,
this
yeah.
week. We'll see after.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sad I
Watch
did that.
the
I'm
socials.
disappointed.
So, since today the location of the story is unknown, the question
Or they
that we
can't
have,
find
or
it.
they can't
Yeah,
find
yeah,
it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The question is, what rumored place would you like to visit, or what place that is unknown,
Like
or
mythical
or mythical, yeah,
mysterious.
or even a fictional place, like something from
Some of these
a
might
work of
arguably
fiction.
be fictional.
right?
Yeah.
We don't know.
I
Yeah.
feel like we shouldn't do like the world of books though, or like
Okay.
movies, like things that
Just like
we
legends.
actually, legends. That's
Okay.
the word we've been
Legends.
looking for.
Legends. Mythical. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have one that want to go first?
Yeah, I already thought of mine, and
Okay.
I doubt anybody will steal it, so there's no rush. But
I'd like to do the city of Z.
of course you would. No, the lost city of Z is my answer, and it's the
We're in Canada. It's the city of Zed.
oh, sorry, the lost city of Zed, and it's the Amazonian civilization that might have existed back in like the 1300s when Portuguese explorers found it, and
Right.
then they couldn't find it hundreds of years
And is this the
later.
one that you said was tied into Uncharted, the movie, or that's different?
No, it's a
Okay.
movie called Lost City of Z.
Oh, Lost City. Okay.
And it
Zed.
has Tom Holland in it, is why Jay said
Okay.
that.
Oh,
there we
Okay,
go.
so when he's not Spider-Man, he's just looking for treasures.
He's looking. Well, he's the
That
son
was
of the guy
actually
who's
like
looking
a
for
good
treasure.
movie.
But
Yeah.
Lost City of Z.
Yeah. No, the
Uncharted.
I was gonna say it
Uncharted.
It's
was.
pretty fun.
It's out?
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a cool
That
scene.
dates this podcast, I guess.
There
I
we
didn't
go.
know it was
There you
out.
Yeah.
I'll probably see it.
Do you have one, Jay?
Yeah. I'm cheating. I think maybe
That's
Why?
fine.
Garden of Eden.
Okay, that's not. No, I don't mind that
That's-
actually. That's pretty cool because we don't
Yeah.
know where it is.
We don't
Yeah,
know where
but
it
we
is.
know it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
so does-
existed. Like
so
we
does-
don't know the other ones.
Well,
I
so
mean-
does the one that your geography was talking about.
Okay.
Can
I
you give
did
me
think
this,
about
Abby?
that, but I feel I'll give it to you. But I feel
That's
like
good,
it
though,
is
'cause
cheating.
it's between-
I'm giving it to you because you said at the beginning you think you're cheating. So at least you can acknowledge that.
So
It's not.
it's been
I
put
don't
out
think
there.
it's
It's
cheating.
been established that I'm a cheater, and yeah, the Garden of Eden. I mean,
You look
right?
at the description in Genesis, and it's the Tigris and the Euphrates and two other rivers
Yeah.
that don't intersect right now. So
right.
So who knows?
We'll see.
what happens.
Yeah. So I mean, and I don't even think I need to qualify why I'd want to go there.
That's- yeah, fair enough.
It's Garden of Eden.
you won't get
You
in.
wanna
You might
eat
get
one of the
killed.
trees.
I mean, that's the thing. You got to get by the flaming swords.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Okay. Okay. I actually made like a list of things, and I just don't even know which one to pick because I want to go to all of them. Okay, I'm gonna go with Atlantis
Nice.
because that just sounds fun. Like underwater, who knows? There might have been mermaids.
Have you ever
And,
gone scuba
gold.
diving?
I've been here's actually
You need
maybe
to
I don't
practice.
want
You're gonna need to
Atlantis.
practice a bit
I've
to
been
get down there.
snorkeling and I'm a swimmer. Like I actually am a swimmer.
Right.
And I've been snorkeling and I get so claustrophobic snorkeling. So maybe I don't want to go to Atlantis. Maybe I just want to go to Santa's workshop in the North
In
Pole.
the North Pole.
There you go.
That'd be cool.
Well,
Yeah.
sorry to burst your bubble, Abby. I don't think that one was real.
I don't.
Compared to Atlantis, who
hey.
knows? But
Compared to Atlantis,
Hey.
the city of
Hey.
Zed,
that one was real. I'm
Garden
sure
of
of it.
Eden. Yeah, Santa's. Yeah. So
That's
okay.
fun.
So and
Oh, the bonus question.
we have a
today.
bonus
Bonus
question.
question.
Since today is Abby's birthday.
Hey.
Woo!
There
So
we
you
go.
teed that up. How long have you had that open on your phone?
Yeah, I've had it for a little while. Look at that. Listen to that.
It's still going. It sounds like a whoopee
He's had that
cushion.
teed up for a while.
I have had that queued up for a little while. It's Abby's birthday.
Woo!
And so, bonus question. What do you want for your birthday?
Do I get to go first because
You
it's
have
my
to go first
birthday?
because it's your birthday.
Okay. I always want to travel places. So
Okay.
a flight to pretty much anywhere. Pretty much. You're going to say like,
Like North Bay?
North Pole.
Yeah, that's not.
North
North Pole.
Pole.
To be honest, I just had a friend come back from like the northernmost tip of Canada.
Oh,
okay.
That there's like people that live there, and because she's a nurse and she does that kind of stuff. And her pictures were awesome. So
Oh, yeah.
like, I'm not opposed to it.
So you choose a flight somewhere. Where would you go?
Oh, that's okay. This
Right
is gonna
now.
be too long.
1, 2,
Bolivia.
3. Bolivia. There. See, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
It's easy.
You can't let
Yeah.
her. You don't give her time to make a list, and she won't do it.
That's right.
I have a list at home,
That's
but
right.
yeah, Bolivia is like the big one right now.
Nice.
All right, what do you guys want for your birthday?
All right. What I want for my birthday my birthday is in January, so it's a little ways away.
So Riley, Nathan, Ben, Michelle, you guys have some time to get this.
Well, and there's another factor involved.
Okay.
I would like Toronto Maple Leafs Stanley Cup memorabilia. So they
All
need to
right.
win, right? Like,
That's implied.
Yeah.
I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna say Stanley Cup Finals tickets, and I'm like, well, that's
well, yeah.
Never gonna
And I
happen.
mean, and actually, depending on when this drops, they may or may not still be in the playoffs.
We'll
so,
see.
Oh, yes, we'll see.
if it's anything like years past, there's no chance.
Yeah.
And if it truly is the year, like we all say as Leafs fans,
Jay's predicting it now.
then yes, for my birthday, Stanley Cup memorabilia. But I'll
All right.
gladly take other things as well because
Okay.
I'm not getting my hopes up.
And my
Okay.
birthday just happened when we're recording, and it happened a month ago when this is released. Anyway, tomorrow night when we're recording this, I won't tell you when, there is a concert for Olivia Rodrigo, and that's what I want for my birthday, is tickets to go see Olivia Rodrigo in Toronto.
Oh my
That'd
gosh.
be great.
He came in tonight. He's like, I hope I win this contest to get tickets. And Riley was like,
Even my friends were
honey.
entering the contest saying, if
Like
I win,
for
we're
you?
going.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
okay.
funny.
Okay.
They would
okay,
take
can
me.
you give us a little sneak peek of the song? Sing us something.
Well,
Some
everybody-
driver's license. Or
I got my drive. No. I can sing them all, though. I know every word.
Good
All
for
right.
you,
We'll do it on a live or
happy
something.
and
That's my
healthy.
running songs.
Not me.
Anyway.
As always, if you have comments, questions,
Want to
Send
tell
us-
us what you want for your birthday?
tell us what you want for your birthday.
right.
Email us at story@bfmc.org. Now, the other thing is, use our social media. Our Instagram is
Yeah.
hopping, right? We've got
Abby's working
lots-
hard, posting every day.
Yeah, there's
Pictures,
lots
videos,
of opportunity for interaction
There you
there.
go.
So jump on
comments
to our Instagram.
on weird videos that you see.
Be-
Abby posted
Lots of behind
my,
the scenes stuff.
my TikTok, Jay's weird ear.
Yes.
Shebang.
Fletcher and I have learned that if anything gets caught on camera, that it might
Abby
end
will
up
be
on our
posting it.
social.
Yeah.
And always, of course, we encourage you to read the stories for yourselves to get the whole picture of what's going on. And today's story takes place in 1 Samuel, chapters 21 to 29. So,
Righty.
so last week we talked about David and his mighty men, and we mentioned a guy named Ashish. And today we're actually going to talk about him.
Hey, look
right?
at that.
So
Comes full circle.
that's right. So like the last 3 episodes, we're talking about the time of David during the golden age of Israel before it was divided. But Saul is still actually the king at this point, and David is fleeing from him because Saul would like to kill him.
Yeah. I feel repetitive saying, because
Yeah,
the last
it-
3
we've
weeks
been
it's been
yeah.
the same thing. But
Yeah.
we got to recap.
Well, Saul wanted to kill David for like a really long
It
time.
was a
True.
long time.
He was running a while.
Yeah.
So, getting into some history, right? Last week
year.
we talked about it. It's, David is born around the year 1040 BC. He's anointed king around the age of 15, and he kills Goliath around that same time. He becomes king of Israel between 1010 and 1003 BC. And so today's stories take place a little bit after that. David's running from Saul, who was king. Just to put that in context, David was anointed king while Saul was king. So
yeah.
there's a little bit of conflict there, and you can see
Little bit,
why Saul might want to kill him. So David actually ended up staying with Ashish for 1 year and 4 months, it says.
Right.
So he was out of the country for a while.
Yeah. So where did this all take place? As you might have learned from our question, we don't totally know where every location is. So the first one is Gath. So the city of Gath is thought today to be the modern city of Kiryat Gat, which is located between Jerusalem and Ashkelon, which are modern day cities. And then Ashish also gifted David this place called Ziklag, which archaeologists actually aren't totally sure where it is today. During David's reign, it was raided by the Amalekites, and it was kind of cool. When I was researching this in 2019, a group of researchers from Australia and Israel, I think they might have found the area. It still hasn't been confirmed, but the place that they think it might be is called Khurbat al-Ray. I'll put an article in the show notes talking about the discovery. The reason that people think this might not be the place, they have a lot of evidence because they found a lot of like pottery and stuff that matched the time and the way the city was built. But the reason they think it might not have, because David would often go raiding into Negev, which is about 132 kilometers south of Gath, or about 2 days of walking. And so that's not like a super short distance for raiding, like, because they would say, oh, where did you go raid today? And it's kind of a 2 days walk to go raid a place. So that's kind of why they don't think it is, but they're not 100% sure. So yeah, you can go read more about that in the show notes.
Nice. And if you recognize the name Gath, Goliath of Gath is probably the most famous person from Gath.
Who was killed by a 15-year-old.
That's right.
With a rock.
Well, he got hit in the head with a rock and then his head was cut off. I don't
guess
know which
yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume the head chopping off finished the job.
I mean, if there was a question, it was
it was solved. With the sword.
That's funny.
And that sword is actually in the story if you want a little bit of spoilers. Anyway, so here we go. King Ashish. That was all me. I did it by myself. No. King Ashish pops up twice actually in David's life. And one time David gets kicked out. Ashish isn't with him. And then David ends up staying with him. So let's start off the story. David and Jonathan are about to separate. If you remember back to our episode with Jonathan... Oh, I thought you were going to blow that. Abby has this...
There's no noise that really comes out of it.
Birthday blower, celebration blower. I'm freaking out here. So David and Jonathan have this brotherly pact. They're best friends. And David's like, you got to find out if Saul's going to kill me or not, if I have to run away.
Right.
Jonathan goes, comes back, and they have this whole meeting with arrows. And you can read about it. I think it's in chapter 21 of 1 Samuel. No, that's not right. Yes. 20? 21? Something like that. It's in the book of 1 Samuel, if you want to go read it. It's really cool.
In the 20s.
Anyway, David finds out Saul is definitely going to kill him if he goes back. So David runs, and he ends up running into the land of the Philistines, into the territory, or into the city of Gath. And that's where a man named Ashish is king. So David goes in, and the men of Gath are like, wait a minute, this is David. Like he's kind of famous.
Wait,
he's known
for killing a lot of
where
Philistines.
he stayed with a priest at a place called Nob,
that's a whole,
and that's where
he gets the sword.
It's
right away.
Right.
So yeah, on his way to the Philistines, to Gath, he stops at a priest. I think his name is Abimelech.
Abimelech.
That sounds familiar. And he gives them food. And Jesus actually talks about this story when they're talking about food on the Sabbath, working on the Sabbath and holy consecrated food,
plucking the grains.
Anyway,
or eating the priestly bread.
Eating the priestly bread. There, but he gets food from this priest, and the priest is like, "Oh, I have this sword, and it's actually the sword that you used to kill Goliath with."
Right.
So David brings that with him. I don't know if I'd bring the sword that I killed their champion with back to his city. Yeah. Maybe he's showing off.
But given his current condition, a sword is not
probably
I would take any
running.
sword.
Yeah.
Take any sword.
Anyway, so he's running to Gath. He meets with the people there, and they go, "This is David. Haven't you heard the sayings about David? Saul has killed thousands. David is tens and thousands." So they realize who this guy is. He's famous. He's a legendary warrior in the region, and they're like, we know who this guy is. David's like, "Oh no, this isn't good. They know who I am. I'm going to kind of act crazy." So it says he acts mad. He starts drooling out of his mouth. He scratches up the walls and scratches up the doors, and just to seem like he's not a threat.
Right.
And then the king Ashish is like, why did you bring me this guy? I don't want to see. Do I need more madmen in my kingdom? I don't need this. That's so he boots him out of there and gets sent away. So it's a good first meeting, good first impression for David. He acts crazy. And he gets kicked out. So it's not great first impressions.
Yeah.
So this is a bit later on. We talked about David's mighty men, and he got his 600 men. And after Saul and David met in the cave where he cut off the corner of his robe while he was relieving himself. This is all afterward. And actually, David and Saul have this meeting, and that takes place in chapter 26, and it's at the end. And Saul and David are talking, and the conversation ends with Saul saying, surely you're going to succeed in all that you do. Right. So they end, and they go their separate ways. They end up on a really good note, and Saul probably isn't going to kill him, is what 26 ends with.
Right.
And then you go into chapter 27, and the first thing is David thought, Saul's going to kill me.
Oh, David.
I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unfounded. It's happened before, but
yes,
he didn't believe him. Saul's going to kill me. So he flees back to the Philistines with his men and goes back to King Ashish and asks for help.
Right.
So he ends up going back to King Ashish, and somehow Ashish says, David asked, if you have mercy on me, let me stay with you.
Right.
And Ashish ends up, saying, okay, you can go stay at Ziklag.
Because you're not crazy anymore.
You're not crazy anymore. And he has these men. He has 600 men with him, right? And I guess David presented himself, that he's not a threat.
Right.
He gives him Ziklag, which is not actually, well, we don't know, but it's not that close to Gath. So it's like, okay, he's out of the way. We don't have to worry about it.
Right.
So David is now staying at Ziklag with his 600 men and their families, and we know what happens there. If you listened last week, he gets attacked by the Amalekites. Anyway, while he's staying there, David and his men go out raiding all the time. And he goes out and he tells the King Ashish, that he's going to go raid the Israelites, his own men. So Ashish is like, oh, go for it, go attack your men, go attack. He's actually going and attacking the enemies of Israel that are in the area, the Amalekites. There's let me see where it is.
The Geshurites and
Gerzites. The Geshurites, the Gerzites. Some of these aren't actually, those two, mentioned anywhere else, so they were wiped out.
Right.
And it says that David didn't leave anybody alive, so they couldn't tell the story of what happened.
Right.
Of David attacking them. So he goes, kills these groups, and he takes their loot, and he brings it to his friends in Israel, saying, look, these are the enemies, things of Israel, take it. And he actually brings some tribute back to King Ashish, saying, look, it's the stuff from Israel.
Right.
Here's some paying for you. And it kind of reminded me of like a mob movie. It's like, you're paying off the police, you're paying off the bad guys, you're paying off. Nobody's saying anything. Everybody's happy. They're getting money. And David is running around killing the enemies of Israel and keeping the Philistines happy all at the same time.
Yeah.
So it all comes to this, culmination. The Philistines are now going to mount an attack on Israel, like a big one. So they have a bunch of generals and leaders around. And King Ashish is like enamored with David. He's like, oh, this guy's, he's not going to go back to Israel. He's been attacking them.
Right.
He's on my side. So he brings David and his men with him to battle. And the lords of the Philistines are like, what are you doing? You're bringing this Israelite to go attack Israel? Like, he's going to turn on you.
Right.
And King Ashish is like, no. He's proven himself. He's not going to go back. And they're like, no, we're not having this. Yeah. So King Ashish gets overruled and actually has to send David. And they make Ashish kick David out. This is what Ashish says. It's chapter 29, verse 6 and on. It says, so Ashish called David and said, as surely as the Lord lives, you have been reliable, and I would be pleased to have you serve with me in the army. He swears on David's God, which is pretty cool. Because he's like, I know David, I know his people. I'm going to swear on his God, not my God. I'd be reliable. So that's his quote. That's what he says to David. But you can't fight with us because the other generals won't have it. And David's like, what did I do? I think I want it. This is a little bit of speculation, but I want to say that David is like, I want to kind of betray them in battle. I want to get this done.
Right.
But we don't know. We don't know actually what happened, which is too bad. But anyway, David gets kicked out of the army, and he and his men have to go back to Israel. And that's the end of that story and the end of that chapter.
So why did we pick King Ashish again?
As a helper. So we've been talking about helpers and what they do. He took David in, took his men in, gave him a city to live in, and supported him, gave him food. And he liked David a lot and helped him basically in everything that he did. And he goes and he says, goes off with blessings, essentially. And he's like, David has been like an angel to me. He's done everything for me and helped me out. And that's why we picked him as a helper. Yeah. He doesn't realize that he was helping somebody who was lying to him. That's the only thing. So the question,
it's kind of neat because the fact that he's a helper, but he doesn't even know that he's a helper.
that he's a helper, or that he's helping somebody who doesn't like him.
Yeah.
Does David not like Ashish though, or is he just?
He's just tricking him. He's manipulating him, right? So sure, he likes him, but he's killing his friends, and lying to him about it. Anyway, so I want to know what we talked about is we think that David came to a wrong conclusion with running from Saul.
That's definitely like, yes, he because it says, then David said in his heart, now I shall perish one day by the hand of Saul.
Mm-hmm. That's in 1 Samuel 27, verse 1.
Right. Yeah. And there's nothing better for me that I should escape to the land of the Philistines. So
there's nothing better for me. It's my only option. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, David, what are you doing, man? You've been anointed as the king, and you've held on to this all the way through. Why?
Yeah. Do you think he's like given up? Like he's done all these things. He's said, Saul, I'm not going to kill you. Do you think he's fed up and he's like, okay, I'm done with this Israel business? I don't know.
Well, and this is I kind of hate that we're doing this episode because it flies in the face of what I've held about David clinging to the promise of God at all times in not fighting for the king. And so in this, he's not fighting Saul, and he maintains that throughout. Never, he even when he thinks that his men were the ones that killed Saul at the end, he rebukes them because he says, how dare you raise your hand against the Lord's anointed. And so he maintains that throughout. But in this instance, he seems to have removed his faith in God to preserve him as the anointed king moving forward. So I'm not glad that you chose this for
I know it kind of well, that's something that we see in all the major kind of Bible characters is that they have all these flaws. And David, we've certainly talked about his unwavering faith is something that we've really talked about. And this is a moment where it wasn't perfect. Yeah. He made a decision to run. And then you look at Psalm, I want to say 23, you prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies, right? He knew it. Yeah. He made the wrong decision and he ended up running from his job, from his calling.
That's right. Which is, it's a reminder for us to continue to just trust in the Lord and to stand firm on the things that we know to be true. But there is a reality that is difficult at times. And sometimes our faith is wavering, but what we know to be true then can take over and maybe even just overpower our lack of faith. There's this saying that says, if you can't faith it, fact it. Like stand on what you know to be true, even when you're having a hard time believing it.
Well, that's the ultimate. To be true. That's the ultimate act of faith, is not believing it, but acting like you will anyway. Doubting, right? But acting.
That's kind of funny because when you say if you can't faith it, fact it. Exactly. That's actually faithing it.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next question as I had, we've talked about this a little bit, and we did in the live stream, David's deception of Ashish. And I think it's forced his hand to be deceptive. He's run off. He has to stay with this king. He's not going to tell him the truth. Right. So in a way, it's like it's an act of war, and it's justifiable, I'd say, yes. But it could have been avoided if he had just not put himself in that situation, is what my interpretation of it is.
Had he not run, he wouldn't be in that situation. Right. Yeah, that's right. And so, it's is the deception justified? But that might not even be the question.
The right question to ask.
Could the deception have been avoided if he didn't run in the first place?
Absolutely.
Which is, it's important.
So that poses it to us as well, is what you make a decision in your life that has put you in a situation where, now you're going to have to lie about it. Right. Why'd you do the first thing in the first place? And you think, this has caused this, and lies turn into lies, and sin just will compound if you're trying to get out of it.
Right. So deal with it at its root.
That's that's a great conclusion to come to, but boy, is that a hard one to hear. Yeah. Yeah. Next one, King Ashish is kind of gullible.
A little bit.
Little bit. Do you think so? What do you think, Abby?
No, I agree. Yeah. I'm listening to you retell this story, and when I read it, I read it more as him helping, right? And then I'm reading
that's
this,
what I read when we picked him as a character. I'm like, he helped David out. But then I reread it, I'm like, wow.
David is kind of sneaky, so it's making me question.
What I want to say is, he was gullible, but I think he was blinded by kind of the gifts and the stuff that David was doing for him.
Right.
You know, David was bringing him money, and he's like, oh, I guess I can turn the other cheek. Yeah.
To be honest, like in Ashish's eyes too, David and David's God were positive. It was a positive thing, the way that David presented it. Now he did it inaccurately, but when David left, and when he left with like a good taste in his mouth, you know, and so he didn't, despite being a Philistine, he still
had respect for
David. For God.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that's kind of cool. That like even though David kind of messed up the situation, God kind of redeemed it by leaving this positive mark on Ashish's life, right? Because we know the Philistines were enemies of Israel, right? Like, so that's cool that there was a way to reach them.
In some ways, even like as David brings spoils to him, that's almost like God blessing him for being used. Yes, you've been deceived by David, but here I'm still.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking is David and like we talked about, Saul's call from God was to utterly destroy these places and not take any loot for yourself, and to utterly destroy it. And David is going to fulfill that, but he's still taking the loot. So he's still doing the duty of destroying the things. Right. And God is blessing him in that, right? He's very successful, militarily wise. Right. However that comes out. That's it. He's very successful militarily, and he's blessed in that. And then Ashish is just reaping some of the benefits of David's blessed success. Yeah. Yeah. But speaking of gullibility, that's not a good thing. That's not an attribute that I think we strive towards.
Not a fruit of the Spirit.
Well, I know it certainly isn't.
The fruit of the Spirit,
but that's something that I kind of think is, we're not meant to be unwise. We're not meant to be gullible. We're not meant to look past things. And the verse that kind of came to mind when I was thinking about the gullibility is in Matthew. And it's, Jesus says, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, you should be as shrewd as snakes, but as innocent as doves. So don't sin and don't lie and don't cheat. Right. But don't be foolish and don't get tricked.
Don't get tricked.
So that is a cool thing to think of. It's like, yes, we're supposed to be pure, but don't be dumb about it, and don't be
aware.
Be aware. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that leads to our final question.
It always does, eh?
It always does, somehow. So how does the story of King Ashish lead to fulfilling the story of God throughout the Bible?
Yeah, that's the question, eh? So what I'd go with Ashish, and as a helper and an unknowing helper of the future king of Israel, who is then in the line of Christ. Like, this guy just thinks he's helping out David, and David is just some guy in history. He's not anybody necessarily special. But if you look back at it from our perspective, you can see Ashish essentially saved David's life from Saul, even though it wasn't the only option. Ashish saved his life and protected him and helped him to get the kingdom of Israel, and then to have the rest of Israel's prophecies fulfilled and the rest of the plan that Jesus had laid out. Ashish unknowingly participated in that whole history of Israel, and then
preserved his life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything?
Thanks, King Ashish.
Thank you, King Ashish.
Thank
Keeping
you.
him. I'm a big fan of Narnia. I don't know.
I enjoy him. Enjoy the book.
King Ashish in the Bible. It sounds an awful lot like Arshish from The Horse and His Boy. Anyway, I found it funny that the names Ashish and Arshish sounds very similar, and then what they do is protect the king. So Shasta, who unknowingly was the king of Arkanland. Look at me, I know all this stuff. I've read that book too many times. And Arshish actually protects the king and raises him and keeps him safe from the Calormans unknowingly. And I'm like, whoa, was there a connection? But they're not spelled the same.
They're not spelled the same. But
let's ask C.S. Lewis.
I mean, I would not be surprised if
there was a connection there.
Who knows? Maybe
inspired. Yeah. Anyway,
inspired by one.
I wanted to add that before Abby cut us off.
Very nice. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in on my birthday and joining my birthday podcast celebration.
Jay doesn't have it queued up.
Close the tab.
And for listening and joining this conversation about King Ashish.
Thanks
That's all
listening.
we have for this week.
Bye for now.
See you later.